Commander Zextil stood on the bridge of his massive warship and looked down at the blue planet below. His 6 eyes gleamed with satisfaction as he watched the smaller ships prepare for landing. This would be easy. The scouts had told him everything. He needed to know about this world called Earth. The humans were weak. They fought each other with simple weapons that shot metal pieces. They had no energy shields or plasma cannons. Their cities were not protected by force fields. Best of all, they were divided into many groups that hated each other. They would fall quickly. Sub-Commander Krellinox, take the first landing team down, Zextil ordered. His voice echoed through the ship's metal halls. Find their leaders and make them surrender. If they refuse, kill a few to show them we mean business. Krellinox bowed his massive head. Like all Valerians, he stood 8 feet tall and had thick, gray skin that could stop most bullets. His 4 arms carried the best weapons their empire could make. Energy rifles that could melt steel. Plasma grenades that could level buildings. Force shields that could stop anything these primitive humans might throw at them. It will be done, Commander, Krellinox said. How many humans should we expect to fight? Zextil laughed. The sound was like rocks grinding together. Fight? These soft creatures do not fight. They run and hide when real warriors appear. Our scouts watch them for months. They spend their time growing food and playing games. They are no threat to the Valerian Empire. The landing ship dropped through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. Inside, 20 Valerian soldiers checked their weapons and armor. They had conquered 17 worlds before this one. Each time, the natives had either surrendered immediately or been crushed within hours. Earth would be no different. The ship touched down in a wide field covered with green grass. Mountains rose in the distance, purple against the morning sky. The air smelled of growing things and animal life. It was a rich world, full of resources the Empire needed. But something felt wrong the moment their boots touched the ground. The gravity was heavier than expected, making their steps awkward. The air was thick and hard to breathe. Worst of all, there was a feeling in the air, a sense of danger that made their warrior instincts scream warnings. Spread out, Krellinox ordered. Find the local humans and bring them to me. They did not have to look far. A simple building made of wood and stone sat near the landing site. Smoke rose from its chimney. A few 4-legged creatures with white wool stood in a fenced area nearby. Everything looked peaceful and harmless. That a human walked out of the building. The Valerians had seen pictures of humans before, but seeing one in person was different. This one was smaller than they expected, maybe 6 feet tall. His skin was dark from the sun, and lines around his eyes showed his age. Gray hair poked out from under a cloth hat. He wore simple blue pants and a shirt that had seen better days. But there was something in his eyes that made the Valerians pause. The human was not afraid. He was not surprised. He looked at the giant alien soldiers like he had been expecting them. The human's name was Jake Morrison, though the aliens did not know this yet. He was 53 years old and had spent most of his life on this ranch in Montana. But before that, he had spent 12 years in the United States Marine Corps. He had fought in 3 wars and earned medals for bravery under fire. Jake looked at the alien soldiers and sighed. Then he walked back into his house. The Valerians heard him, talking to someone, but they could not understand the words. They moved closer, weapons ready. Jake came back out carrying a long rifle. It was old but well maintained. He had used it to hunt deer and elk in these mountains for 20 years. But it had been designed for a different kind of hunting long ago. "You boys are on my land," Jake said in a calm voice. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The Valerians looked at each other in confusion. This was not how conquests were supposed to go. The humans should be running or begging for mercy. Instead, this one stood there like he owned the place. Which? Of course, he did. Human, Krellinox said in broken English. You will surrender now. Your world belongs to the Valerian Empire. Jake spat in the dirt. Like hell it does. The sub-commander raised his energy rifle. You'll obey or die. Son, Jake said, his voice still calm. I've been shot at by experts. You don't scare me. That was when Krillinox made his first mistake. He fired a warning shot at Jake's barn. The energy beam cut through the wooden building like it was made of paper. The barn collapsed in a shower of burning wood and metal. Jake looked at the ruins of his barn. He had built it himself 15 years ago. It had held his tools, his tractor, and feed for his animals. Now it was gone. The old Marine's eyes went. Cold, that was a mistake, Jake said quietly. Then he raised his rifle and fired. The bullet struck Krellinox's force shield and passed right through it like it was not there. The sub-commander staggered backward, purple blood flowing from a hole in his chest armor. He looked down at the wound in shock. Impossible, he whispered. The other Valerians opened fire. Energy beams lit up the morning air. But Jake was already moving. 20 years of hunting in these mountains had taught him how to use every rock and tree for cover. 30 years before that, the Marines had taught him how to kill. He worked the bolt on his rifle and fired again. Another Valerian fell. By now, the sound of weapons fire had reached other farms in the valley. Phones started ringing. Radios crackled. To life. The word spread quickly through the community. The aliens had come to Earth, and they had just made their first mistake. They had landed in Montana. Where everybody knew how to shoot. The phone rang 3 times before Lisa Stone answered it. She was feeding chickens behind her house when she heard the shooting start across the valley. Now Jake Morrison was on the line, and his voice was tight with controlled anger. Lisa, we got company, Jake said. The kind that shoots first and asks questions later. How many? Lisa asked. She was already walking toward her house, her mind shifting into combat mode. 20 years in the army had taught her to stay calm when things went bad. About 20. Of them, big ugly things 8 feet tall. They just burned down my barn. Lisa grabbed her rifle from the gun rack by the door. I'm on my way. You call the sheriff? Already did. He's calling the National Guard. Jake's rifle boomed in the background. These things have some kind of shields, but they don't stop bullets. Weird. Lisa ran to her truck and started the engine. As she drove toward Jake's ranch, she called her neighbor Danny Brooks. Danny answered on the first ring. I heard the shooting, Danny said. Aliens? Looks like it. Meet me at Jake's place. Bring everything you've got. Danny Brooks was a small man who ran the local hardware store. He was quiet and friendly, always ready to help his neighbors fix a broken fence or find the right tool for a job. What most people did not know was that Danny had spent 8 years as a Navy SEAL before he came to Montana. He grabbed his gear bag and headed for his truck. Inside the bag were weapons and equipment that looked nothing like what you would find in a hardware store. Back at Jake's ranch, the battle was getting worse. The Valerians had taken cover behind their landing ship, but they were confused and angry. Sub-Commander Krellinox was still alive, but barely. Purple blood soaked his armor. How are their weapons piercing our shields? He asked one of his soldiers. I do not know, Sub-Commander. Our shields should stop all kinetic weapons. What the Valerians did not understand was that Jake's rifle fired bullets designed to penetrate armor. The rounds were made of dense metal and moved at very high speed. They had been created to punch through the best protection human armies could build. Jake fired again and saw another alien stumble. He was running low on ammunition, but help was coming. He could hear truck engines in the distance. Lisa Stone, arrived first. She parked her truck behind Jake's house and ran to where he was crouched behind a water trough. Her rifle was an old military weapon that had seen action in Iraq. "What's their weakness?" she asked. "They're big and slow," Jake said, "and they think like soldiers, not like hunters. They group up too much." Lisa nodded and moved to a new position. She had learned long ago that the best way to fight was to never stay in one place too long. She lined up her shot and fired. Danny Brooks arrived 5 minutes later with 3 other men. There was Pete Collins, who owned the farm next door, Tony Garcia, who fixed cars and trucks for everyone in the valley, and Sam Parker, who had retired to Montana after 30 years in the Army. The aliens suddenly found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. These were not soldiers in uniform. They were farmers and shop owners and mechanics. But they all knew how to fight. Pete Collins had been a Marine sniper in Afghanistan. He set up on a hill overlooking the alien ship and started picking off targets. Each shot was carefully aimed. Each shot found its mark. Tony Garcia crawled through the tall grass with a bag full of homemade explosives. He had learned to make bombs in the Navy, and he had not forgotten the skills. Sam Parker coordinated the attack like the colonel he used to be. He moved the defenders to new positions, planned their attacks, and made sure they did not waste ammunition. Valerians were brave fighters, but they were not prepared for this kind of battle. They had expected to fight human armies with tanks and helicopters. Instead, they faced individuals who knew the land and used it to their advantage. "We need reinforcements," Kralinox called to his ship. "The humans are not as weak as the scouts." "Reported. Reinforcements are coming," came the reply. "Hold your position." But holding position was getting harder. The humans seemed to be everywhere at once. They appeared from behind rocks and trees, fired a few shots, then disappeared again. The Valerians' heavy weapons were useless against enemies they could not see. More trucks arrived. More neighbors with rifles and hunting experience. Word was spreading through the valley, and everyone was coming to help. Katie Wells showed up, with her hunting rifle and a grim smile. She had been an Air Force pilot before she became a school teacher. She knew how to stay calm under pressure. Nancy White came with her medical bag. She had been an Army medic, and she knew there would be wounded people to treat. She set up an aid station in Jake's kitchen. The aliens were starting to panic. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be soft and weak. They were supposed to surrender when faced with superior technology. Instead, they were fighting. Like the very mountains were on their side. Tony Garcia's explosives went off under the alien ship. The blast shook the ground and sent metal pieces flying. The ship's hull cracked, and strange fluids began leaking out. "Their ship is damaged," Sam Parker called out. "They can't leave now." The Valerians realized they were trapped. Their shields were failing under the constant gunfire. Their weapons were designed for space battles, not close quarters fighting on rough ground. Kralinox made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He ordered his soldiers to target the human homes. "Burn everything," he said. "Show them the price of resistance." Energy beams lanced out toward the farmhouses, but the humans were ready. They had moved their families to safety and prepared for this moment. Jake Morrison watched his house catch fire. 40 years of memories went up in smoke. His grandfather's chair, his wife's photographs, everything that made it home. He loaded a new magazine into his rifle and kept firing. The aliens had made their second mistake. They thought destroying human property would break human spirit. They were wrong, Doc. It just made the humans angry. And angry humans were something the galaxy had never seen before. The news spread across Earth like wildfire. Television stations interrupted their regular programs. Radio broadcasts carried urgent bulletins. Internet sites crashed under the weight of millions of people trying to understand what was happening. Aliens had landed in Montana. They were hostile, and they were losing. Commander Zexthal watched the reports from his command ship in orbit. His confidence was cracking like ice in spring. The humans were not behaving the way conquered species were supposed to behave. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "Sub-Commander Krellinox is requesting immediate evacuation. Half his force is dead or wounded." Zexthal's four fists clenched. "How is this possible? They are primitives with metal projectile weapons." "The humans appear to be more organized than our scouts reported," the officer said carefully. "They are using advanced tactics." What the Valerians did not understand was that they had landed in the middle of a country where military service was common, where hunting was a way of life, where people grew up learning to shoot before they could drive a car. In Montana, the battle was spreading. More landing ships had arrived, but instead of making things easier for the aliens, they just gave this humans more targets. The second wave of Valerians landed near the town of Billings. They expected to find frightened civilians. Instead, they found the Montana National Guard waiting for them. Captain Van Clark had been called up from the reserves, along with his entire unit. They had set up defensive positions around the city and were ready for a fight. "Remember," Ben told his soldiers, "these things are big and strong, but their shields don't work against our weapons. Aim for center mass and keep firing." The aliens attacked with their usual confidence. Energy weapons lit up the sky. Plasma grenades exploded against buildings. But the humans were dug in and ready. Staff Sergeant Alex Turner had been a Delta Force operator before he joined the National Guard. He led a small team behind enemy lines and started picking off alien officers. Each shot was precise. Each shot counted. The aliens found themselves caught between the National Guard's heavy weapons and the sniper teams hiding in the hills. They had superior technology, but the humans had superior tactics. In Chicago, a third alien force landed in Grant Park. They expected to terrorize the population and force a quick surrender. Instead, they found themselves facing Detective Mike Chun and his SWAT team. Mike had served 3 tours in Iraq before becoming a police officer. He knew urban warfare like other people knew their jobs. He led his team through the city streets, using buildings and alleys to get close to the aliens. "These things are used to fighting in space," Mike told his team. "They don't know how to fight in a city." The aliens tried to use their energy weapons in the narrow streets, but the humans used the buildings for cover. They appeared on rooftops and in windows, fired a few shots, then disappeared again. By nightfall, the aliens in Chicago were trapped in the park, surrounded by human forces they could not see or target effectively. In Texas, the 4th alien landing was even more disastrous. The ship came down near a small town called Cedar Creek. The aliens expected to find simple farmers and ranchers. Instead, they found Lavra Davis. Lavra ran a small diner in town, but she had been a Marine pilot for 8 years. When the aliens landed, she got on her radio and started coordinating the defense. "All units, this is Falcon. We have hostiles in the south field. I'm painting targets now." The aliens had never heard military radio chatter before. They did not understand that this small human settlement was connected to a network of former soldiers who stayed in touch with each other. Within an hour, pickup trucks full of armed men and women were arriving from all directions. They had hunting rifles, military weapons, and most importantly, they had experience. The aliens tried to establish a perimeter, but the humans knew the land. They used creek beds and tree lines to get close. They set up crossfire positions and flanking maneuvers. Former Army Ranger Helen Rodriguez led a team that captured 3 aliens alive. She wanted to learn about their technology and tactics, strip their weapons and armor, she told her team. I want to know how this stuff works. What Helen found surprised her. The alien technology was advanced, but it was not as advanced as she had expected. Their energy weapons were powerful, but slow to recharge. Their armor was strong, but heavy and awkward. Most importantly, their shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not physical bullets. They've been fighting other aliens, Helen realized. They've never faced kinetic weapons before. The information spread quickly through military networks. Human forces around the world began adapting their tactics. They focused on rapid movement and accurate shooting. They used terrain to their advantage. They fought like humans had always fought. Back in Montana, the original battle was still raging. But now the aliens were completely surrounded. Sam Parker had organized the defense into a professional military operation. We've got snipers on every hilltop, he reported to the National Guard commander. Tony's explosive teams have mined all the approach routes. The aliens can't move without taking casualties. The aliens tried to call for air support, but their ships in orbit were having problems too. Human radar installations were tracking their movements. Military satellites were gathering intelligence about their capabilities. Most disturbing of all, humans were starting to reverse engineer captured alien technology. At Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, a team of engineers, led by Dr. Rachel Stone, was taking apart alien weapons and equipment. Rachel had been an Army engineer before she became a civilian researcher. Their technology is impressive, she told her team, but it's not magical. We can understand it, we can copy it, and we can improve it. The aliens had made their third mistake. They thought human technology was primitive because it was different from theirs. They did not realize that human engineering was focused on reliability and effectiveness rather than flashy energy displays. Human weapons were simple, but they worked. Human tactics were basic, but they were proven. Human soldiers were not as individually strong as aliens, but they worked together better. As the sun set on the first day of the invasion, Commander Zexthel faced a terrible truth. His forces were not winning. They were barely surviving. The humans were not the weak, divided species his scouts had described. They were something far more dangerous. They were veterans. Every human settlement seemed to contain former soldiers. Every civilian seemed to know something about warfare. Every farm in town was a potential fortress. Worst of all, the humans were learning. They were studying alien technology, adapting their tactics, and sharing information across their entire planet. The Valerian Empire had conquered 17 worlds, but they had never faced anything like Earth. They had never faced a species that treated war as both a science and an art, and they were starting to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. 3 days into the invasion, the Valerians captured their first human prisoner. Her name was Helen Rodriguez, and she had been leading a reconnaissance team when an alien patrol surrounded her position. The aliens brought Helen to their temporary command post, expecting to break her quickly. They had interrogated prisoners from other worlds before. Most species gave up their secrets within hours when faced with Valerian intimidation. Helen was different. She sat in the metal chair they provided and looked at her captors with calm, dark eyes. She was 45 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and scars on her hands from years of hard work. To the aliens, she looked like a typical human civilian. They had no idea she had spent 20 years in the Central Intelligence Agency. Tell us about your military defenses, Subcommander Krillinox demanded. His chest wound was bandaged, but he was still in pain. How many soldiers do you have? Helen smiled. Which soldiers do you mean? Your military forces, your armies. Oh, you mean the official military. Helen's smile grew wider. We have about 2 million active duty personnel. But that's not the problem you're facing. Krillinox leaned forward. What do you mean? You landed in Montana, Helen said. Do you know what Montana is? The aliens looked confused. Their translation. Devices were having trouble with the concept. Montana is a state, one of 50 states in our country. It has about 1 million people living in it. Most of them are farmers and ranchers and small business owners. Exactly, Krellinox said. Civilians, non-combatants. Helen laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. You really don't understand, do you? There are no non-combatants on Earth. Not. Really. She leaned back in her chair and began to explain. See, we've been fighting wars for our entire history. Not just against other humans, but against nature itself. Against predators and diseases and natural disasters. Every human learns. To fight something. The aliens listened with growing unease. That farmer you shot at first, Jake Morrison? He's a Marine veteran. 20 years of service. 3 combat tours. The woman who coordinates the sniper teams? Lisa Stone? Army Ranger, retired. The man who's been bombing your supply lines? Tony Garcia? Navy demolitions expert. Helen continued, her voice calm and educational. The school teacher who's been treating your wounded prisoners? Nancy White? Army medic, a mechanic who's been modifying our weapons? Annie Brooks? Navy SEAL, the pilot who's been coordinating. Air support? Katie Wells? Air Force, 10 years. Krellinox was beginning to understand. Your civilians are former soldiers. Some of them, Helen agreed, but not all. You see, we have something called the Second Amendment. It means our citizens have the right to own weapons. And we have something called hunting season. It means millions of people practice shooting, moving targets every year. She gestured toward the window, where the sound of gunfire could be heard in the distance. Those people shooting at your forces right now? Some of them are veterans, yes. But some of them are just good shots who don't like bullies. The aliens were starting to realize the scope of their mistake. They had thought human civilization was like their own, with distinct classes of warriors and civilians. They had not understood that Earth was a planet where everyone was potentially dangerous. But your technology is primitive, one of the aliens protested. Your weapons are crude. Helen's expression grew serious. Let me tell you something about human technology. We don't build things to look impressive. We build things to work. Those crude weapons you're facing, they've been refined through thousands of years of warfare. They're simple, reliable, and effective. She pointed to the alien energy rifle leaning against the wall. Your weapon there is very advanced, but it takes time to recharge between shots. It's heavy. It's complicated. If it breaks down, you need special parts and tools to fix it. Then she pointed to a human rifle that had been captured. That rifle is over 60 years old. It fires bullets that cost pennies to make. It's simple enough that a child can learn to use it. And it will keep working even if you drop it in mud or leave it in the rain. The aliens were silent. They were beginning to understand that human technology was not primitive. It was optimized for a different kind of warfare. There's something else you should know, Helen continued. You've been monitoring our communications, right? Our television and radio broadcasts? The aliens nodded. Then you know we fight each other. You've seen our wars and conflicts. You probably think that makes us weak and divided. Helen stood up and walked to the window. Outside, human forces were moving through the trees, hunting alien patrols. You're wrong, she said. Those wars taught us something. They taught us that the only thing more dangerous than a human enemy is a human ally. When we're threatened by outsiders, we stop fighting each other and start fighting together. She turned back to face her captors. You want to know how many soldiers we have? We have 300 million people in America alone. And right now, every one of them is angry at you. The truth of Helen's words was becoming clear across the planet. The alien invasion had done something that no human leader had ever managed to accomplish. It had united humanity. In Russia, former Spetsnaz operators were leading civilian militias against alien forces. In Germany, citizens were modifying hunting rifles to penetrate alien armor. In Japan, martial arts masters were teaching hand-to-hand combat techniques designed to exploit alien weaknesses the aliens had expected to face human military forces. Instead, they faced human culture. They faced a species that had spent its entire existence preparing for war. Even when they called it sports or games or entertainment, human children played with toy soldiers and video games about warfare. Human. Adults watched movies about battles and read books about strategy. Human athletes competed in contests that were barely disguised combat training. Even human recreation was militaristic. People went camping to learn survival skills. They hunted animals to practice marksmanship. They played paintball and laser tag to learn tactics. The aliens had invaded a planet where warfare was not just a profession. It was a hobby. Commander Zextel was receiving reports from all over the planet. Every landing site was under attack. Every alien force was taking casualties. The humans were not just fighting back, they were winning. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human government." "Put it through," Zextel ordered. The face that appeared on his screen was that of an older human male with gray hair and tired eyes. He was the President of the United States, though the aliens did not know this. "Commander," the President said, "we need to talk." Zextel was surprised. He had expected demands for surrender or threats of retaliation. Instead, the human leader sounded almost sympathetic. "We know why you're here," the President continued. "You need resources. Your empire is expanding, and you need planets to support your people." "We understand that." The alien commander leaned forward. This was not what he had expected. "But you made a mistake," the President said. "You chose the wrong planet to invade. Earth is not a normal world. We're not a normal species. We're survivors, we're fighters, and we don't surrender." The screen showed images of human forces around the world. Soldiers and civilians working together. Advanced weapons being distributed to citizen militias. Captured alien technology being reverse engineered. "This is your one chance," the President said. "Leave now, and we'll let you go. Stay, and we'll show you what humans do to invaders." Zexthel looked at the images and realized something that chilled him to his core. The humans were not just defending their planet. They were preparing to take the war to the stars. Commander Zexthel had a choice to make. He could order his fleet to bombard Earth from orbit, destroying the planet's surface and killing billions of humans. Or he could retreat and admit that the mighty Valerian Empire had been defeated by a species they had underestimated. The decision was made for him when his tactical officer brought him devastating news. "Sir," the officer said, his voice shaking, "the humans have captured the Sword of Vengeance." Zexthel felt his blood turn cold. The Sword of Vengeance was one of their heavy cruisers. It carried enough firepower to level a city and was protected by the best shields the Empire could build. How is that possible? He demanded. A small team of humans infiltrated the ship while it was in low orbit for repairs. They disabled the crew and seized control of the vessel. The team had been led by Mike Shun, the former Delta Force operator who had been fighting aliens in Chicago. With him were Laver Davis, the Marine pilot from Texas, and 6 other Special Operations veterans. They had used captured alien technology to board the ship. Once inside, they had moved through the corridors like ghosts, taking out sentries and disabling security systems. The alien crew had never faced enemies who could fight in zero gravity and navigate unfamiliar spacecraft. "They're not just holding the ship," the tactical officer continued. They're flying it. This was the moment when the Valerians understood the true scope of their mistake. The humans had not just captured a starship. They had learned to operate it. Laura Davis sat in the pilot's seat of the alien cruiser, her hands moving over controls. That should have been impossible for a human to understand. But humans had been reverse engineering alien technology for days now. They had learned to adapt. All systems are online, she reported to Mike Chun. Weapons are charged and ready. Mike stood on the bridge of the alien ship and looked down at Earth below. From this height, he could see the curve of the planet, the blue oceans and white clouds. It was beautiful and peaceful, which made the alien invasion even more offensive. Open a channel to the alien fleet, he ordered. Channel open. Lavra replied. Mike's voice echoed through every alien ship in the system. This is Colonel Mike Chun, United States Army, speaking for the people of Earth. You have exactly 1 hour to begin withdrawing from our system. If you refuse, we will demonstrate why invading Earth was the worst mistake your species has ever made. Commander Zexthal felt a chill run down his spine. The humans were not just fighting back. They were making demands. You cannot threaten us with 1 stolen ship, he replied. We have an entire fleet. 1 ship was just the beginning. Mike said, We've been busy down here. The proof came from the surface of Earth. Human forces had been working around the clock to repair and modify captured alien technology. They had turned alien energy weapons into anti-aircraft guns. They had converted alien vehicles into mobile command centers. Most importantly, they had learned to build their own versions of alien technology. Dr. Rachel Stone's team at Wright-Patterson had made a breakthrough. They had not just copied alien technology. They had improved it. The alien shields are designed to stop energy weapons, Rachel explained to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But we've modified them to stop both energy and kinetic weapons. Our version is actually better than theirs. The human counterattack began at dawn. Modified human aircraft, protected by improved alien shields, rose from hidden bases around the world. They carried weapons that combined human engineering with alien technology. The aliens found themselves facing fighters that were faster, more maneuverable, and better protected than anything they had encountered before. But the real shock came when the humans revealed their secret weapon. Jake Morrison stood on the front porch of his rebuilt house, watching the sky. The old Marine had become a symbol of human resistance. News crews from around the world had interviewed him. His calm defiance of the alien invaders had inspired millions of people. Now he was about to witness the end of the invasion. There it is, he said to Lisa Stone, who stood beside him. In the sky above Montana, a new star was rising. It was a human-built spacecraft, constructed in record time using captured alien technology and human engineering. It was smaller than the alien ships, but it was faster and more efficient. The pilot was Katie Wells, the former Air Force pilot who had become a school teacher. She had volunteered for the mission because she understood what needed to be done. This is Freedom 1, she radioed to the alien fleet. You have 30 seconds to begin your withdrawal. Commander Zexthal looked at his tactical displays. The humans had accomplished in 1 week what it had taken the Valerian Empire decades to achieve. They had gone from a planet-bound species to a spacefaring one. Worse, they had done it using Valerian technology against the Valerians themselves. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving transmissions from the other landing sites. All ground forces are requesting immediate evacuation. The alien ground forces were in full retreat. They had been outfought, outmaneuvered, and demoralized by an enemy they had expected to defeat easily. Sub-Commander Krulinox, limping from his wounds, made his final report. The humans fight like no species we have encountered. They adapt to every tactic we use. They turn our own weapons against us. They do not surrender even when faced with certain death. And they learn, added another officer. Every battle teaches them something new. They share information across their entire species. What one human discovers, all humans know within hours. Zexthul realized that continuing the invasion would mean fighting a species that grew stronger with every battle. The humans would eventually overcome the Valerians through sheer determination and adaptability. All ships, he ordered, prepare for immediate departure. Sir, his